The water glass was her third refill. Bridget watched the ice melt slowly. She checked her phone as if she were waiting for someone. Like she had plans. Like she belonged in Murphy's Diner at 7 p.m. on a Friday. With everyone around her eating dinner, the smell was torture. Burgers, fries, fresh bread. Her stomach had stopped growling an hour ago. Past that now. Just the hollow ache that came from skipping 2 meals and knowing this would be a third. She'd come in because it was warm. Because she had another 90 minutes before the library closed. And she could charge her phone properly. Because sitting in a booth pretending to wait for food was less humiliating than sitting on a bus stop bench with nowhere to go. The waitress, Carol, knew. Bridget could tell by the way she kept refilling water without asking if Bridget wanted to order. Polite distance, professional courtesy that said, "I see you can't afford food, but I won't embarrass you about it." Bridget had $4.73 in her bank account. Payday was Monday. Rent was paid. The phone bill was paid. Everything else was math that didn't work out at the booth diagonal to hers. A man and his daughter were sharing a meal. The little girl kept staring at Bridget. Big eyes, confused. Finally she tugged her father's sleeve. Asked a question Bridget couldn't hear, but could imagine. The father looked at Bridget. Really looked. And Bridget saw the exact moment he understood. Bridget Chun was 27 years old. Bachelor's degree in social work from a state university. $43,000 in student loans. Currently employed as a case manager at a nonprofit serving homeless families. Annual salary, $34,800 before taxes. Take home, approximately $2,200. Monthly, rent for a studio apartment in a neighborhood where she felt safe walking home at night, $1,450. Student, loan minimum payment, $380. Phone, $75. Utilities, $120. Transit, pass, $95. Health, insurance copay for her anxiety medication, $45. Total fixed expenses, $2,165. Remaining, for food, clothing, emergencies, and everything else life required, $35 monthly. The math was brutal. The math was everywhere. The math meant she ate 1 meal daily. Meant free coffee and snacks at work were her breakfast and lunch. Meant food banks when her pride allowed. Meant sitting in diners pretending to wait for food. She couldn't buy. She'd chosen social work because she wanted to help people. Specifically wanted to help families avoid homelessness. Had watched her own family struggle when she was younger. Her mother is working 3 jobs. Her father's business is failing. The year they lived in their car while he rebuilt. Bridget had promised herself she'd make a difference. It would help people navigate the systems that had nearly destroyed her family. Turned out helping others paid poverty wages. Turned out you could have a degree and a professional job and still skip meals. Turned out the people who served the poor were often one crisis away from being poor themselves. She worked with homeless families during the day. Went home to an empty apartment she could barely afford and wondered how long until she was the one needing services instead of providing them. 3 months ago, she'd been hospitalized for malnutrition-related complications. The doctor had asked about her diet. She'd been honest. He'd been shocked. "You have a job. How is this happening?" She'd shown him the math. He'd gone quiet, prescribed vitamins, given her a list of food banks, said nothing about the systemic absurdity of college-educated professionals needing food assistance. Bridget had stopped going to doctors after that. Couldn't afford the co-pays for them to tell her what she already knew. She was slowly starving while working full-time, helping others avoid the same. The little girl's name was Emma. She was 6 years old and hadn't learned yet that adults sometimes pretended things were fine when they weren't. Hadn't learned that asking direct questions about poverty made people uncomfortable. Hadn't learned to look away from suffering. "Daddy, why isn't that lady eating?" Emma's voice carried, not loud, but clear enough that Bridget heard. Clear enough that 2 other tables heard. Her father, whose name was Owen Mitchell, had learned all those lessons. Had learned to see poverty without acknowledging it, to notice suffering without engagement, to maintain the comfortable fiction that if someone was in a restaurant, they could afford to eat there. Emma's question shattered that fiction. Maybe she already ate, sweetie, Owen said quietly. The parent deflection, the comfortable lie. But she keeps drinking water, and looking at the menu, and looking sad. Emma wasn't dropping it. Is she waiting for someone? Owen looked at Bridget again. Really looked this time. Saw the worn professional clothes. The way she held the menu without really reading it. The phone checking was performance, not communication. The water glass that kept getting refilled. Saw the hunger she was trying to hide. I think maybe she's having a hard time right now, Owen said carefully. What kind of hard time? Maybe money is hard to come by. Emma processed this. A 6-year-old logic trying to understand adult problems. So she can't buy dinner? Maybe not tonight. That's sad. We should share. Emma said it like it was obvious. It was the only possible response to someone being hungry in a place full of food. Owen looked at his daughter, at Bridget, at the half-eaten meal between them. Emma was full. Owen had ordered too much intentionally so Emma could take leftovers to school next week. Turkey sandwich, fries, and a milkshake. Emma had barely touched. He thought about walking over, offering. Imagine Bridget's face. The humiliation. The pride that would make her refuse. The way charity felt when you were the recipient instead of the giver. Emma, it's more complicated than. No, it's not. Emma slid out of the booth, grabbed her plate, started walking toward Bridget's table. Emma, wait. Owen followed. Too late to stop her without causing a scene. Emma stopped at Bridget's booth, held up her plate. Hi, I'm Emma. I'm full, but there's still food. And my daddy says you're having a hard time and maybe you're hungry. Do you want my fries? They're really good. And I didn't even touch the pickle. The diner went quiet. That particular silence that happens when a child does something adults know they should do but won't. Bridget's face went through several expressions. Shock, embarrassment, something that might have been grief. She looked at Emma. Owen is standing behind his daughter, looking apologetic. At the plate of food, the entire diner was watching. Have you ever been offered help you desperately needed, but couldn't accept? Comment below if you've experienced this. I want to hear your stories. That's very kind, Bridget said carefully. But you should keep your dinner. I can't eat anymore. I'm full. And Daddy says wasting food is bad. So if you don't eat it, it's wasted. That's bad, right? The 6-year-old logic was airtight. Bridget felt tears coming. Fought them back. Sweetie, please? Emma put the plate on the table. You look really sad. And food makes people less sad. That's what my daddy says when I'm upset. Owen finally spoke. I apologize if we're intruding. Emma, come back to our... Wait. Bridget looked at the plate. At Emma's concerned face, at Owen's embarrassed expression, made a calculation. Pride versus hunger, dignity versus need. The lie she'd been performing versus the truth Emma had already seen through. She took a fry, ate it. The salt, fat, and carbohydrate hit her system like a drug. She closed her eyes, felt her body respond to actual food after 2 days of coffee and nothing else. When she opened her eyes, Emma was smiling. See, you were hungry. It's okay. Everybody gets hungry. Bridget nodded, couldn't speak. Took another fry. Owen slid into the booth across from her, gestured for Emma to sit beside him, called Carol over. Can we get a full dinner here? Burger, fries, whatever she wants. Put it on my tab. Sir, you don't have to, Bridget started. I know, but Emma's right. Wasting food is bad, and you're clearly hungry. And I've got a credit card, and you've got an empty table. The math seems pretty simple to me. Carol pulled out her order pad, looked at Bridget with something like relief. What can I get you, honey? Bridget looked at Owen, at Emma, at Carol, at the diner full of people pretending not to watch. At the plate of fries, she was clutching like a lifeline. Turkey burger, side salad instead of fries. Water is fine. The cheapest meal on the menu. Even in charity, she was trying to minimize cost. Even in desperation, she was trying to be considerate. Get the fries too, Owen said. And the milkshake. Chocolate's good here. And the soup. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days. I haven't eaten at all in 2 days, Bridget said quietly. The truth, simple, undeniable. The diner's silence got heavier. Carol's hand paused on her notepad. Then we're getting you a lot more than a burger, Owen said. Carol, bring the dinner special. Extra bread. And a piece of pie for after. That's too much. It's dinner. It's Friday night. You're hungry. This is what neighbors do. Owen held her gaze. Let us help. Bridget nodded. Couldn't speak. Took another fry. Let Emma talk about her kindergarten day while Carol puts in an order that would cost more than Bridget spent on food in 2 weeks. The food arrived. More than Bridget had seen on one table in months. Turkey burger, fries, soup, bread, side salad, milkshake. Carol had added extra without asking. Owen didn't object. Bridget ate slowly, forcing herself not to devour everything immediately. Her stomach had shrunk. Too much too fast would make her sick. But God, it was hard to pace herself when every bite tasted like salvation. Emma chattered, oblivious to the weight of what was happening. Talked about school, about her missing tooth, about the class rabbit, about how her daddy sometimes let her have ice cream for breakfast on Saturdays. Owen listened to his daughter and watched Bridget eat with an expression that was hard to read. Not pity exactly, something deeper. Something that looked like recognition. Between bites, Bridget learned things. Owen was a single father. His wife had died 3 years ago. Cancer. He worked as an electrician. Union job. Good benefits. He and Emma were doing okay. Not rich, but stable. I used to think doing okay meant everyone was, Owen said quietly while Emma colored on the kids' menu. Then Sarah got sick. Then I saw how fast everything could fall apart. How expensive dying was. How many people helped us. How many bills we couldn't pay despite having insurance. I learned what it felt like to need help. But you're okay now, Bridget said. We are. Because people helped. Because my union covered some costs. Because Sarah's family contributed. Because teachers brought us dinners. Because our neighbors showed up. He paused. And because I learned that being okay was partly luck, timing, resources I happened to have. Not virtue, not hard work, just circumstances that could change tomorrow. Bridget understood. That's what I do. My job. I'm a case manager at a homeless prevention nonprofit. I help families navigate assistance programs, find housing, access food banks, get their feet under them. Owen looked at her worn clothes, the hunger she'd been hiding. You help other people while you're struggling yourself. The people who serve the vulnerable are usually vulnerable too. We're all one crisis away. Some of us are just better at hiding it. Where are you watching from? Have you ever worked helping others while needing help yourself? Drop a comment. Emma had stopped coloring, was listening even though she probably didn't understand. Why don't you just buy food? She asked. Simple question. Complex answer. Because rent costs so much that there's no money left for food after I pay it, Bridget said simply. I make enough to not qualify for food stamps, but not enough to actually afford food and rent and everything else. That's dumb, Emma declared. Yeah, Bridget agreed. It really is. Owen made a decision, pulled out his phone, sent a text. Within minutes he was getting responses. What are you doing? Bridget asked. Fixing something. He showed her his phone. Group text to his union local. 23 electricians. Tomorrow's Saturday. Some of us were planning to do side work. Instead, we're going to help you. Help me how? Where do you live? She told him. He knew the building. Electrical's probably a mess in a place that old. You paying for utilities? Yes. About $120 a month. You're getting overcharged because the building's inefficient and the landlord won't fix it. We'll update your outlets, check your breaker box, install LED bulbs, and fix any electrical inefficiencies. Cut your bill in half, probably. I can't afford to pay electricians. Not asking you to. My guys volunteer for community projects all the time. This counts. Bridget stared at him. Why would you do this? Because Emma's right. You're hungry. And that's wrong. Because I can fix electrical, but I can't fix your rent being too high or your salary being too low. But I can reduce your utility bill. Give you an extra $50 to $60 a month. That's groceries. That's not sitting in diners pretending to wait for food you can't buy. More texts were coming in, offers, ideas. One electrician's wife worked in HR at a company with open positions. Another's brother managed low-income housing with vacancies at better rates. Another knew about a food co-op that served the working poor for reduced costs. Owen was building a network in real time, creating support from nothing but a text and a story about a hungry woman and his daughter's question. "I don't understand why you're doing this," Bridget said again. Emma answered, "Because you're hungry and we can help. That's what neighbors do." Simple, true, 6-year-old clarity cutting through every adult complication. By the time Bridget finished eating slowly, carefully, her stomach finally full for the first time in days, Owen had organized half her problems. Electrical work Saturday morning. 8 electricians. 3 hours max. No charge. They'd bring food too. Make sure she had groceries. Introduction to the HR contact on Monday. Position was entry-level office admin, but paid $42,000 with benefits. Less fulfilling than social work, but $7,200 more annually. That was $600 monthly. That was food and breathing room. Information about the housing co-op. Utilities included. $1,100 for a studio in a safe neighborhood. That was $350 monthly savings. That was the difference between surviving and living. Connection to the food co-op. $50 monthly membership gave access to bulk foods at cost. Weekly produce boxes. That was maybe $150 to $200 monthly value. Owen was creating a support system. Not charity. Not handouts. Just information and connections that people with networks took for granted, and people without networks never accessed. "I don't know what to say," Bridget managed. "Say you'll let us help. Say you'll apply for that job. Say you'll check out the housing co-op. Say you'll stop skipping meals. I'm supposed to be the one helping people. I'm literally paid to do what you're doing right now. It's humiliating needing the help I'm supposed to give." Owen leaned forward. "I'm going to tell you what someone told me when Sarah was dying and I was drowning. Being helped isn't failure. It's being human. You've helped hundreds of families. Let people help you. It doesn't make you less qualified for your job. It makes you more qualified, because now you know what it feels like." Emma tugged Bridget's sleeve. "Will you come to my soccer game tomorrow? It's at 10. You could come, and then the electrician guys could follow you to your house after." Bridget looked at this child who had noticed her hunger when adults had looked away. This child had broken every social rule about acknowledging poverty because she believed the hungry should be fed. This child who was inviting her to a soccer game was now like they were friends. Have you ever watched a child teach adults how to be human? Share your experience below. I'd like that, Bridget said. "Good. I'm not very good at soccer yet, but Daddy says trying is what matters." "Your daddy's right." Owen paid the bill, tipped Carol generously. As they walked out, he handed Bridget a bag. "Carol packed this while you were talking to Emma. Leftovers from the kitchen. Sandwiches, fruit, some breakfast stuff. Should get you through the weekend until tomorrow." Bridget took the bag, heavy, full, more food than she'd had in weeks. She started crying, finally, the tears she'd been holding back since Emma had approached her table with a plate of fries and asked a question no one else had thought to ask. 6 months later, Bridget attended Emma's 7th birthday party. It was held at Owen's house. Small gathering, mostly family. Some of the electricians who'd worked on her apartment, the HR contact who'd helped her get the office job, a few people from the food co-op she now volunteers with. Bridget had taken the office admin position. It was boring. She missed social work, but she eats 3 meals a day now, had money for clothes and occasional entertainment, was rebuilding savings. Her anxiety medication actually worked when her body wasn't in constant crisis mode. She'd moved to the housing co-op, saved $350 monthly. The community there was strong. People who understand struggle, who shared resources, who looked out for each other. She volunteered at the food co-op on Saturdays, helped distribute produce, saw people who looked like they'd felt 6 months ago, made sure they knew about resources, made sure they left with full bags and information about job connections and housing options. She'd started a side project, working with her former nonprofit to create resource guides for working professionals living in poverty, specifically targeting the gap between too much for assistance and too little to survive. The people like her who had degrees and jobs, but still skipped meals. Owen and Emma had become friends, real ones. Emma called Bridget her extra aunt. Owen called her occasionally to check in, sometimes to ask for advice about parenting a daughter without a mother, sometimes to tell her about union members who needed connections to services. They'd created something. Not romance, not an obligation, just community. The kind of network that caught people when they fell. At the birthday party, Emma announced she wanted to be a social worker when she grew up, like Bridget, helping hungry people. Later, when Bridget was helping clean up, Owen said, "You know, that night changed Emma, right? She understands now that people who look fine might not be. She looks for it, asks about it, wants to help. You taught her something I couldn't." "She taught me something too," Bridget said. "Asking for help isn't a weakness. That community happens when someone's brave enough to acknowledge need. That a 6-year-old has better instincts about humanity than most adults." Owen laughed. "She definitely has better instincts than I did. I would have sat there and done nothing if she hadn't forced the issue. But you followed through. You built a network. You changed my entire life trajectory because your daughter noticed I was hungry. She noticed. I just had a phone call with some electrician friends. That's power, access, resources. You use them for good. So do you. Every day. Now you just do it while eating properly." If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tell me in the comments, when did someone's simple act of kindness change your trajectory? Here is what Bridget Chun's story teaches us. First, poverty wages exist in helping professions by design. Bridget had a degree and worked full-time serving vulnerable populations, made $34,800 annually, below the living wage in her city. This isn't accidental. Nonprofits and social services underpay workers systematically. They assume passion compensates for poverty wages. It doesn't. You can't sustain helping others when you're drowning yourself. Pay people properly, or stop being surprised when good workers leave for boring jobs that let them eat. Second, children see suffering adults perform around. Emma noticed Bridget's hunger immediately, asked direct questions. Adults had taught themselves not to see, not to ask, not to acknowledge. Children haven't learned those comfortable lies yet. We should learn from them. Stop pretending not to see suffering. Stop valorizing polite distance over human connection. Ask the direct questions. Offer help. Let discomfort drive action. Third, the gap between too much for assistance and enough to survive traps millions. Bridget made too much for food stamps, not enough to afford food and rent. That gap is policy failure, not personal failure. Assistance programs have arbitrary cutoffs that ignore the actual cost of living. Working full-time with a degree shouldn't require skipping meals. Systems need reform. Until then, the working poor suffer invisibly while checking phones in diners pretending to wait for food they can't buy. Fourth, networks are wealth. Owen had union connections, HR contacts, housing information, food co-op knowledge. He converted social capital into practical help. Most people in poverty lack these networks. That's part of what keeps them poor. If you have networks, share them. Make introductions. Provide information. Your casual connections might be someone else's lifeline. Fifth, small interventions compound. Owen reduced Bridget's utilities by $60 monthly. Connected her to housing, saving $350 monthly. Job information added $600 monthly. The food co-op saved $150 monthly. Total impact, roughly $1,160 monthly. Life-changing difference. Most people can't give someone $1,160 monthly, but most people can make one connection, fix one problem, share one resource. Small helps compound into transformation. Sixth, being helped doesn't disqualify you from helping others, it qualifies you. Bridget felt humiliated needing help while employed to give help. Wrong. Her experience made her better at her work, more empathetic, more realistic about what people face. The best helpers have needed help. Lived experience is expertise. Never let shame about receiving assistance prevent you from providing it. If you see someone performing, okay, ordering only water, checking their phone repeatedly, looking hungry, ask, offer, risk the awkwardness. Worst case, you're wrong and they're fine. Best case, you feed someone who's starving while sitting in a restaurant because it's warm and smells like food. If you employ people in helping professions, pay them living wages. Stop exploiting their passion for service. Stop assuming mission-driven means willing to starve. You can't serve vulnerable populations while creating new ones through poverty wages. If you have resources, networks, information, skills, money, use them to close gaps for others. Not charity, not saviorism, just sharing access you take for granted. Make introductions, share job leads, explain systems, fix small problems. It costs you little and changes everything for someone else. If you're struggling while helping others, ask for help. It's not hypocrisy, it's honesty. The people who serve the poor are often poor themselves. That's system failure, not personal failure. Let people help you. Use that experience to help others better. Your struggle is expertise, not shame. Hunger should never exist in restaurants full of food. Emma understood that at 6 years old. Asked why the lady wasn't eating, shared her fries, started a chain reaction that restructured someone's entire life. One question, one plate of fries, one refusal to accept that someone should be hungry in a place full of food. That's humanity. That's what neighbors do. That's what happens when children haven't yet learned to look away from suffering. May we all have Emma's courage to ask, Owen's willingness to act, and Bridget's strength to accept help while continuing to give it. Because poverty isn't personal failure. It's structural design. And fighting it requires seeing each other, asking direct questions, sharing resources. And sometimes, offering someone your fries because they look sad, and food makes people less sad. Simple, true, 6-year-old. Wisdom that most adults have forgotten. Remember it. Practice it. Be Emma in a world that trains you to be everyone else who looked away.